Hello and welcome to the Ego Podcast. My name is Dina Jackson and I am your host. Today we have a wonderful guest with us here in the studio, and we are live from Eggplant Picture and Sound, which is in downtown Toronto, Canada. And she is a teacher. She is a researcher. She's part of the nursing program, which is it's in conjunction with Ryerson University, Centennial, and George Brown College, and it's a collaborative nursing program. She's also working on her PhD right now in nursing, and she's the organizer for TEDx at Trinity Bellwoods, their conference events. She's also on a number of nonprofit organizations for health initiatives and new immigrants into Canada, and she has a background in nursing and health sciences. She's presented in a number of conferences as a speaker as well on topics such as masculinity and men's health, and she's completed her clinical trials in the area of research in health issues of Indigenous people in Canada. Wow, that's a lot. And on top of that, she's also studied 7 languages. She's fluent in 3, and she has a book coming out called The Newcomer, an immigrant's guide to adapting and thriving in the new culture. Please welcome Olesya Kolisnyk. Welcome, Olesya. Thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you for the wonderful introduction.
Of course. Thank you for gracing us with your presence. I mean, wow, those are so many amazing credits to your name, and it's wonderful to chat with you about those things. But one of the main reasons that I brought you here is that on top of all of your credentials and all of the things that you're currently working on, your book, your TEDx conferences, everything coming up, you also have allotted yourself some time and have developed an interest in mental health initiatives and also your own yoga practice, which I think is amazing. Myself as a yoga teacher and instructor, it's something that I love hearing about. I feel like we're all students in some way, that most definitely. So I would love to hear a little bit more about you. I mean, credits are lovely, but more about your story, kind of what brought you here, and what got you to begin practicing yoga.
Well, so starting with my professional area, I guess being involved in higher education has always been a dream of mine.
Yeah.
And I'm very fortunate to be able to pursue it back in my home country and now in Canada. Mm-hmm. So I was inspired by my father, who was a teacher, and my mom, who was a nurse. So I guess I'm a product of my parents.
Oh, yeah,
teacher
exactly.
in nursing.
Perfect.
And I've been doing
mix.
that for the past 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, I'm looking forward to starting my doctoral studies this fall, and with a focus in leadership and nursing education.
Cool.
I do believe that we are all lifetime and lifelong learners, and so I do see this personal educational journey as a very important step in enhancing my expertise in education and contribute scientifically to the field of nursing education, and also to remain true to my values and beliefs of lifetime learner. And as you mentioned, like, my background also includes nursing practice, and more specifically, I worked in multi-organ transplant at Toronto General Hospital. And yes, now I do teach nursing in the collaborative degree program with Ryerson. So in the past, I was also a teacher of German language and literature.
Wow.
It took me a little bit of time and effort to get here, I guess. And I guess the other side of me is a continuous involvement in community initiatives for various causes. So my very first one was joining the board of organizers for Colors of Love International Concert, and it's a charitable initiative together with Heads On for Awareness organization in support for mental health. And as an immigrant, and I now can say that was successfully integrated here in Canada and found my home, I felt strongly about supporting new immigrants today who face those challenges that I was exposed to 16 years ago. And I became a founding member of a nonprofit organization which is called Immigrant Women in Business. And that organization does support new immigrants in their process of establishment in Canada. And within that organization, I represent my home country, Ukraine.
That's so cool.
And that sort of got me into writing a book about the newcomer, sort of a guide to a guide to adapting and thriving in the new culture to help new immigrants and people who are in the host countries to better understand and support each other. So that's the goal that I'm working on now.
That's so cool.
And more recently, I was licensed to organize TEDx Talks events. And I have to say, TED and TEDx conferences were a big passion of mine for many years.
Okay.
And to be more specific, since 2006, when it first available for public viewing. So last year, I obtained the license to organize my first event, which was TEDx Trinity Bell with Women. And that was event held in November, and it focused on women issues around the globe. TEDx Trinity Bell was standard event, which is open more broadly to different ideas from multidisciplinary, cross-culturally, and from time perspective, which is one that we're working on right now. And the conference will be in 2 weeks on August 7 in Metro Hall in Toronto.
That's exciting. That's a pretty big venue.
Yes, it is, and I'm really looking forward to it. I like to think that I sort of embraced the challenge of bringing TEDx experiences to smaller communities in Toronto.
Definitely.
And I was fortunate to be joined by like-minded people who share this passion for TEDx organizing and ideas to be shared. Because I do believe that ideas and dreams are some of our greatest assets in the city. And ideas do have a power to reshape people's minds and change their behaviors. So having a platform where those ideas could be shared and dreams could be voiced is a first step in generating a conversation and taking actions. So on August 7, we are aiming to really present talks on issue that matters to our local community, to have a global impact, and to spark a real dialogue how to make a difference in the world.
That sounds amazing. Just one question for you.
Yeah.
The so on the board that you're on, or for the Immigrant Women in Business organization, the nonprofit you're part of, do you see speakers from there? Have they intersected and been at some of your TEDx events? Have they been there in person or spoken at those events?
So we use the application process for speakers. So
Right.
it's online and people can self-nominate them, or
Oh,
somebody
cool.
can nominate them. So yes, they come from various backgrounds and areas of expertise. So
Yeah, that's
yeah,
awesome.
just submit an application.
Cool. Very cool. Well, that all sounds amazing. I don't know if there was anything more you wanted to share before I ask you a little bit more about your yoga practice, but that sounds fantastic.
You mean in relation to TEDx?
No. I
Oh,
just didn't know if there was anything else you wanted to mention about TEDx and the upcoming event.
Looking forward to meeting you there, Dana.
Yeah, me too. I'm excited to come. I'm very excited. And Metro Hall is like the mecca of Toronto events. That's where you want to speak. So that's awesome.
So we're looking forward to sort of connect people, to share the idea, to spread the word, and if people would like to be mentally stimulated and inspired, so please come.
Yeah, I'll be there, and anyone else can purchase their ticket online. We can add all the information for that, most definitely.
Well, I guess now we talk about yoga. How did I get into that?
Yeah, I would. That's what I would love to hear about, because you and I chatted a little bit about that offline before we started recording, and you just explained, you've been practicing for, is it about a year now, you were saying?
Yes, it's about a year.
And so what brought you into practicing yoga?
So our life tends to get busy, I guess. It's not
Yeah.
it's not sort of in the new thought of idea, it's just the reality. And I guess we are not immune to different types of stressors that come along. And those stressors could be personal, professional, or being social in origin. So my life was certainly not an exception. And I was going through some challenges last year. A friend of mine was working really, really hard to get me back in a social kind of life. And she invited me to a yoga session. So it was my first ever experience being in a hot room and following instructions on how to lift hands and legs.
Yeah.
That's sort of what it was for me.
That's
So
fair.
prior to that day, I've heard a lot about the yoga, right? And we read the literature on the benefits of yoga practices for physical and mental well-being. But but yet, and never get to do it. I always find an excuse. I get no time. Sometimes I think, okay, well, it's kind of silly. And yeah, sure, well, yeah, you just say it's good, and as everything else we heard on TV or advertisement or anything. So yeah, that was me.
Any reason to find not to do it?
Oh yeah, I was good at it.
Too tired, too busy, anything.
So I guess after I tried it for the first time, I really, really like it. I was physically active before, and it was mostly like running and gym. But yoga was very different. And you feel it once you try it. I don't think I can describe the feeling.
It's hard to put into words, for sure.
So even with that one session, I felt physical tiredness, as if it was a good workout for me. And also, to my surprise, I've noticed changes on my mental level in terms of my concentration, focus, and an ability to, think through and perform.
Right, definitely.
Right.
And you found those areas improved, like your focus and...
I would say instantly.
Yeah, cool.
I would say instantly. Just, the minute you leave the room.
Right.
Those are the first thing that's really like, oh my God, is this happening to me? Is this true?
It's a nice feeling.
It certainly was. So I joined yoga studio, and since last summer, I'm doing a yoga about 3-4 times a week. And I honestly can say that it had a tremendous positive impact on me. Like, I learned that even for that 1 hour, to slow down, to transfer my attention to one thing that is being done like now, and that other things can wait. And after I felt much better in my ability to concentrate in writing, reading, like thinking, my productivity. And I do think that I became much better at handling stressors and stressful events.
Your approach was a little bit more calm?
Yes, yes, I felt more relaxed. I tend not to feel like, oh my God, I'm falling apart.
Right.
This is it.
Yeah. Never a good idea to lead with, I wouldn't say. This is it. This is the end. Yes,
this is it, and where do I start?
That's very, very cool. I know the first time that I practiced yoga, I had feelings like that, and I wasn't really sure what they were. I wasn't sure if that was a normal thing, if I was just exhausted, what that time meant. And there was so much emphasis on the final pose, the Shavasana, which is that time where you can just allow yourself to be present and sort of melt into the floor and let all of the work that you just did, which is a mindfulness practice. A lot of people don't realize that, but the yoga practice in itself is practicing mindfulness, leaving all the thoughts from the day and focusing just on that one posture, and allowing yourself to really be in that posture. And then in the final pose, allowing your body to just be still and find that stillness. And it took a long time before I realized the value in that, and how difficult, and admitting to myself how difficult it is to get on my mat every day. So that's amazing that you're doing that and that you're finding personal benefit from it. Do you notice a difference on the days when you're practicing versus not? Do you notice a major difference, or?
I do.
Yeah.
So I certainly do. On the days that I do practice, since for the past year, I think right now for me, like doing yoga, it kind of became my morning ritual. I look forward to it.
That's nice.
To wake up early in the morning, run across the street to Yoga Tree Studio, stay there for an hour, and then my favorite pose, as you mentioned, it's Shavasana.
Yeah, mine too.
It's a favorite thing to do.
It's the best.
It's the best. And then you're coming back and you overall have a better day. You feel much more fit.
Yep.
I'm better at concentrating, better at doing things, I'm better at organizing myself. Productivity. It's a big thing for me now.
Yeah.
After the yoga practice, and if I mention about my work, it might allow a lot of sitting down and reading, writing, proofreading, editing,
working on a book.
Yeah, well, sounds work.
Yeah.
May sound that way.
Of course.
But after yoga, you actually feel it. It's fun. It's nice.
Yeah.
You enjoy it.
Right.
I think I enjoy everything I do.
Yeah, that's nice. I like that you said you're like discovering it in the moment. I think I might enjoy everything I do, and I attribute some, if not all of that, to yoga. Hey, I love that.
It's a good start.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, that's sort of in the morning. And then sometimes, in the schedule, like we have different schedules. And when I tend to go in the evening, it's like you get exhausted during that 1 hour workout.
Right.
And then they use those natural, what do you call it?
The essential oils.
Yes.
Those are my favorite.
Yeah, and you have a choice of a couple of them. And, oh my God.
It's the best. It's like going to a spa.
Yes. And so you have that physical workout, exhaustion, and then scented oil, and again, back to favorite pose in Shavasana.
Yeah.
You're coming home, you just have much better sleep.
Yeah.
You feel relaxed, you feel joyful, and next morning you wake up, you're full of energy, and you're ready to go about your day.
Yeah, and you're nicer to people. I find when I haven't meditated or I haven't practiced yoga, I'm not necessarily as nice as I could be if I had. That's awesome. One thing I wanted to ask you, Olesya, this being the Ego podcast, is obviously we like to highlight the ego. And when I say the ego, I mean the colloquial definition or the way that we view ourselves. And with that, there are a lot of sort of temptations in the world, in our life, working in stand-up comedy, in the entertainment world, that can be swaying to the ego. And I'm sure this might be something that you deal with working in the writing industry or speaking or education to some degree, because I feel like we all experience it, where there's a lot of ideas that can sway the ego ideas around, for entertainment, it's fame, which I'm sure you could feel on some level, like I want my book to become the most popular, I want to become famous because of that, or success based on monetary things. And I feel like these concepts can move us away from our initial purpose, which maybe we don't know what that is, but in some ways I think that it's to teach or to love or to create or whatever that is. And so I'm wondering if you have experienced this issue with ego in your work or in your life in any way, and what you do to manage that and navigate. I know that's a big, heavy, loaded question, but I do like to ask that to most of the guests, just because the ego is a major focus for this.
Well, I'm a big fan of your podcast.
Oh, thank you.
And I do listen to every episode as they become available.
Wow, thank you.
And you interviewed so many very interesting individuals in the area of mindfulness practice and yoga practice, and they are the pros and the experts in the field. You being yourself.
Oh,
right?
no, I certainly don't call myself an expert. Always a student.
Well, I'm definitely not an expert in this area. I have to say that.
Just a couple of non-experts talking about the ego. That's okay.
But I do believe that there is a higher power that protects us, that directs us, and that supports us. And some people attribute it to religion. Some people view it more from a spirituality perspective, getting into practicing meditation to resort the power of nature. And there's totally a lot more well-known and not that well-known practices out there. And I do agree. And I do agree that it is very important to remain true to ourselves, and it's really hard because there are so many different things going on around us.
Yeah, many distractions for sure.
Way many distractions, and being present in a moment and focusing on what's happening today. By no means to compare yourself to somebody else or the life you might have. And as you mentioned, there are many influences in the world. Where are they coming from? Social media, our surroundings, and it's all distracting. I think at first it might be tempting, and then it might even become stressful. If it's not handled very well, it may lead to some significant mental health issues.
Definitely.
And challenges, and where we tend to see depression, addictions, or some other sort of complications or feeling dissatisfaction with yourself, and how those are manifested and present itself. So well, I do think it's important to strive to be better, but better than you've been yesterday.
Right. Right.
And it's important to accomplish something, to give back, to have plans, to have goals in life, and to have role models and people who can support you in your journey.
Right.
Otherwise, like, there is no progress.
Right. You got to have goals. We've all got
You've got to have goals. and you have to find out how to get there. If there are people who can help you out.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Right?
For sure.
But at the same time, like, I think going back to your question to remaining true to yourself, like, we've got to remember that we're all different. And other than identical twins, we do not have similar DNA composition from early on. So we liked it or not, but that's the case. Our upbringing, communities where we grow up, like other social contexts that we are forming ourselves, they're all different. And I guess we can question why this is the case, but by no means we have the choice to change any of it. So I guess nobody asked us, do we like to be born?
Right. We just appear.
Here
we are.
So what's the purpose of it?
Right.
How to fulfill, how to find out, how to live up to it, well, becomes our responsibility. So be true to yourself. And I guess it's responsibility and maybe even an obligation, if I may say so.
Yeah, definitely. Include that as part of your path, right? Just determining who you are.
I guess, yeah. And then, so what do we do with ourselves?
Well, for me, I have a personal battle with my ego all the time, so that's why I love asking other people about it. But you're right, goals are very, very important. You have to have them. I think it's just not being swayed in one direction or another too far, right? And not being swayed with a concept that's far from who we are.
And remain present.
Yeah.
And remain true to yourself.
I agree.
And I guess the choice, what we do with that is then whether we make it a great life or not. And what is it, how to define it, and how to distinguish it will depend on us.
Yeah.
Right?
I agree.
So since I'm not a meditation expert, the way I kind of view it is to take time to connect with yourself, to slow down, right? To take that time to evaluate and reflect. So it kind of resonates very much so with my nursing profession. Sort of it's like assess, plan, implement, and evaluate. That's what each nurse do on everyday practice and every day. So we come into the room, we assess the concern of our patients, we planning what can be done about it, we implementing it, and we coming back to evaluate whether it was effective. So bringing back to our lives, I guess, we do need time to reflect, slow down. If it's helpful to meditate before that, to bring yourself sort of in that moment and, and center yourself, right?
Yeah, no, that's right. Pretending you're not an expert, but I don't believe you.
I'm learning from you, Dana. and think about how the day went, what went good, what didn't go so well, and maybe there needs to be some changes, and maybe we need to do something differently, or maybe we need to carry on with what we started. And because if you don't do it, I do believe that life has a tendency to do it for us.
I like that.
It will stop us, right? If we don't do it, if we are preoccupied with everything that happens around us, and we don't do that check-in, if I may say, to my true self or to our true selves, right? Back to that purpose. So
yeah,
why I'm here,
yeah,
kind of thing.
Totally.
So if we don't do those check-ins, the life will surprise you. It'll slow you down, or slow us down, and we'll give you that time. It might come in different forms and shapes. It might be like occasional health issue,
right?
But like all.
Well,
of
you
those
notice that as a nurse, right?
Again, going back to my nursing background. So yes, once we get into the hospital, job can wait.
Yeah, everything can wait when that happens. So you hope to not get there.
Yeah, so you don't want to get there. And I guess, yes, to slow down, to evaluate, to find those answers, and sort of continue to really remain true to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure that was a good example.
No, for sure.
Tell
Do you find that practicing things like yoga can help you do that with helping you to become present or helping you to slow down and working on things like being present?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes. If anything, I would attribute it to yoga.
Yeah.
If I may say so, in just 1 year of experience.
No, but that's awesome because it sounds like it's something that's made a very positive impact in your life. So as a result, over the past year, and this sort of leads into my next question, which we touched on a little bit anyway, but just because you were telling me a little bit about your day-to-day practice and just how it makes you feel. But on the long term, so we'd say over the past year, do you notice some long-term benefits have you experienced, like overall just your well-being, how you're feeling, your approach to life, your approach to work? Like, do you notice a difference there?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. I think like I'll touch on it like from the nursing perspective.
Yeah,
right? We as
please.
nurses, we do talk to, like, we talk with our patients, and you need to sleep well and this many hours, you need to drink water, you need to exercise. But yet ourselves, we don't do it.
Right.
Not
Interesting.
very often.
Right.
And then we tend to tell our students, you need to do this, and this, and it will enhance your memory, it will enhance your concentration, productivity, and overall performance. But we as educators might not always
Right.
engage in those practices. So one thing for me, I think I'm getting better at, was practicing yoga. So that's like one major thing. Like that 1 hour gives you that so much positivity. And even like transferring it to different areas, I think I've lost some weight.
Yeah,
My
so-
eating habits became better
Right. As a result.
as a result of it.
Definitely, my eating habits changed most definitely from practicing, just because your body starts to listen to your body more and what it needs, and maybe not your mind as much in terms of what it thinks it wants.
So it certainly allows me to regenerate, to reconnect with
I love
myself, to find and believe that my life is not going to fall apart
Yeah, that's
while I'm in the studio for 1 hour.
right. I think that's so important, though. You touched the nail on the head with that, because you're right. It's going to be the same. You leave for an hour, life's going to be right there waiting for you, and that's one of the biggest things that I'll say to when I'm teaching, like especially in the Shavasana. If you take 5 minutes and try to leave the laundry list or whatever it is that you're focused on in that day, your list of items that just can't wait, they can, right? And if you can let them go for those last few minutes and just really let yourself be still, the end result is that much better, because your approach is a lot more positive. You feel recharged, as you said, you feel more energized, and your approach is completely different than had you not. And that list is still there. It's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
It's not going to disappear into
No.
thin air, but your approach to it is, that hour is so important for you.
You actually go through the list much faster.
Oh, interesting. I like that.
Yes, I find that I go through that list much faster after that 1 hour of practice.
Okay.
So even though if I were to invest that 1 hour into the list, I don't think I would have as much outcome as if I invested it in yoga. And then with that
Right.
mindset, with that concentration, focus,
Yeah.
with that time that I've spent in a studio, I think I go back through the list.
That's amazing. That's like what you were saying before about productivity, which I think
Yeah.
is so interesting, because if you were just to look at it from that standpoint, you don't leave a lull, you just get right to it, because you're feeling much more on point. You're feeling much more ready to go. You want to do those things, whereas if you didn't practice, maybe you're feeling tired, maybe you were feeling distracted, lethargic, I don't know, whatever it is. But these are all reasons to slow you down, right? Whereas taking that hour, actually, like you said, interesting. I like that.
Like you certainly need to, with everything and concentration included, you need to work to be able to concentrate for a certain amount of time on a particular task. Like we do know, we need to take, like, your mind starts wandering off. You're being distracted. You're being tempted to do something else. And keeping you focused on one particular thing, and it depends how well people are trained. So that sort of time they can allocate to do it. What I find with yoga, it extends that period.
Right.
So
Okay.
if I were to compare from the baseline, I think it's certainly extended that period of my concentration and productivity. So that's, I sort of will attribute
That's
to
awesome.
what it helps me to go through the list much quicker.
Yeah, but that's amazing. I love that. I'm gonna start looking at my productivity levels for that. I think that's amazing. I want to ask you, since you work, I have a healthcare question for you, and I also have an education question for you. The education question being, since you work in education, there is some talk right now about adding meditation into the school systems, and I'm wondering what your thoughts are on that. I would love to hear your opinion on that.
Well, I think we have a lot of empirical evidence and numerous formal and informal discussions and conferences on benefits, positive effects of meditation, yoga practices, or self-reflection, of slowing down and being present in a moment practices. I mean, we do have support.
Yeah.
And yoga is pretty much offered now at every scientific conference. We do some
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. You mentioned that to me, but I didn't know that before you told me that.
Or maybe I'm
really
just
cool.
being aware of that and I'm looking for that all the time.
Maybe. I like
Before
that.
I haven't noticed.
Maybe you're manifesting it everywhere you see.
So I see yoga everywhere now.
That's awesome.
So, and actually, when we are starting some long meetings, we do some sort of practices to center us, to breathe together, to sort of bring our thinking back in the room and focus it and deal with what we have to deal at hand. So I do think that those could be integrated in a school system.
Yeah.
And it would be very beneficial. It could be very beneficial to our students as well. Because we as educators and all adults would have to do what we say. Because if you listen to our work and commit to our practices ourselves, so we are able to lead by example and at the same time to raise the new generation and equip them with tools and habits for self-care, caring for others, caring for our environment. So I guess that could be our objective.
I love that. I love the idea of that being everyone's goal, to work together. I just picture a room full of little kids doing yoga, and that warms my heart. But obviously students are all ages, but I'm picturing kids in this vision right now. But yeah, I think that's awesome.
You want to start there.
Yeah, of course. Like you said, investing in the future. And yeah, I agree. One last question I wanted to ask you, Olesya, again, because you working in the education realm, but then also in the health realm, like you said, byproduct of your parents who worked in those areas. I'm wondering what you think about specific to mental health, because I know that you, like you were saying, you're an advocate for mental health. You speak on those issues. And I'm wondering if you think that practices such as meditation and yoga and mindfulness can be beneficial for anyone struggling with any kind of mental health issue. And if you've seen that play out at all so far in your work, and just your thoughts on that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, that's
absolutely.
Quick. I love it.
Definite yes.
Yeah.
I think we can talk about a mental health and we can approach it from a number of directions. And like one would be neurosynapses connection and everything that goes in that area. Or we can go from the more of a meditation and mental health and well-being and what happens in our everyday lives. So one of the things I think that happens and contributes to the mental health issue that we have, it's the to-do list that you mentioned earlier.
Right.
Like priorities, deadline, you have got a grant application, you have an assignment due, and while you're working on them, you feel if I invest a little bit more time, I would do much better and it could look better and it probably, or it should be better. And then you're just sitting on it and you're trying to finish it, and then yet the 23:59 deadline comes in and you click submit, and then either you feel relieved or, oh my god, why didn't I include something else? So along all of those, there are some other events that happen, right? Like it could be positive or negative, or something else happens elsewhere that you need to attend to. Requires your attention, and there are some social media things that you probably want to go into, right, and check and things. So all of those are to-do lists, distractors. Like over time, some of them could be positive, negative, stimulating, but over time certainly produces some wear and tear on us. We are in that, maybe fight and flight response. Yes, no, trying to do it and accomplish and, strive for more and put more things on our list. And over time, again, the mental health, we become, as you mentioned earlier, drained a little bit.
Definitely.
Right? You're kind of losing on that resiliency ability to bounce back,
Mm-hmm.
right? That the next morning I feel as much energetic as I was yesterday, and it cuts into the sleep patterns, and probably will give up on our food, just grab anything that comes available. And then you probably, okay, a couple of extra coffees just to keep you awake and keep on going. So over time, like that would be one of those things. And then the other thing is the longevity or chronicity effect of those stressor, because we could probably be okay for, let's say, a week, or depends, a couple of days, but if it happens over a long period of time,
you'll just become worn out. You'll just come to your wit's end. I mean, just eating, pizza. I was thinking like toaster strudels and dragging like a zombie along. I could keep going. I can keep going.
Yeah.
Can't work that way.
We think we can go.
Yeah. We can't.
But it will stop.
Yeah.
It will stop. And then we'll see, okay, I cannot concentrate anymore, and wonder why, right? I cannot focus anymore. I don't want to go out. I just want to sit down. I don't want to hear anything. I want to be socially isolated, like isolating yourself, right? Excluding yourself from life. And those things, like just what we mentioned right now, if just finding that 1 hour.
Yeah. They could be, people don't realize the long
just
term.
1 hour.
Carving it out.
Just finding the 1 hour to do yoga. Especially when you feel in that overwhelmed period of time, when it's so many things happening, that it's life is falling apart and things are getting out of hand and it's chaos. My suggestion would be, if I may,
Of course,
take 1 hour.
Yeah.
Go do yoga.
Give it for yourself.
Give it for yourself, because chances are, by perpetuating those practices, it's not going to get better on its own.
Right. It'll just become worse. You'll get to a point where your body just shuts down. And I really like your standpoint from that as a nurse, seeing that, right? Like seeing that play out and what the end results are. I mean, someone was saying to me recently, if you don't take these kind of precautions, you see how you progress later in life, right? Relying on things that maybe you wouldn't need to rely on had you taken some time mentally and physically earlier on, right? So, I mean, these are the things that we all know, but it's like you said, carving out that hour that makes all the difference and making it happen, because only you can do that. Right?
And then, like, I think the very difficult part in there to actually get up and go.
Yeah.
Cross the street and enter the yoga studio.
Yeah.
Because once you're there, you just follow the instructions.
Yeah. and then someone's leading you through it. So once you're there, it's amazing, but it's getting there.
People doing it, and the teacher is talking, and there is this meditation element. So it's kind of, you pick up.
Yeah.
Right? Even you do not feel like doing it, but just get in there.
Right.
And do what you can.
Yeah. And the results at the end, you'll be so thankful. You'll be like, man, those women on that podcast that day, they were right. I'm listening to them, because it's true. I mean, the long-term benefits are amazing. Your outlook is very, very different. And just generally how you feel, how you are with other people, it changes.
Yeah. Speaking of the long-term benefits.
Yeah.
So comparing myself to the last year when I started.
Yeah, I'd love to hear. Yeah.
So I certainly feel like also, like, I'm getting better. I'm getting better at practices. I actually can follow the instructions much better now. So I don't mix up my hands and legs.
Right.
I don't fall down.
Yeah.
As often.
That's awesome.
So, you also have that sense of
progress.
Of a positive progress. It gives you another, oh my God, I couldn't do it yesterday, but I can do it today. I actually know what that posture is.
Yeah. It's one, I don't even know if I would call yoga a sport. I really like to call it a practice, but it's one thing that I notice progress very quickly, and I'll see it in students, and I'll see it in other teachers. And so when you have that, when your own practice, you're like, oh man, this is a great motivator. I couldn't touch my toes yesterday, and now today I'm still not at my toes, but maybe I'm a little bit closer, and tomorrow maybe I will. And then the following day, maybe I can reach behind my leg, and like it. And so you build those goals like we were talking about before, and then you reach them, and it feels nice. It feels really, really nice. So, yeah.
And teachers are very supportive.
Yeah.
They always say, Okay, it's okay if you cannot do it today.
Mm-hmm.
Day from day is different.
Right.
It depends on the coffee you've had in the morning or what breakfast did you have. So
Mm-hmm.
you also don't feel bad, like, oh my, like, I'm not improving or things like that. So
Right.
I find it's really, really helpful.
That's awesome. I like that your experience has been so positive. I think we're out of time, Olesya, but thank you so much for being a guest today on the Ego Podcast. This was a real pleasure to have you on. For anyone listening, you can definitely look for her upcoming book, The Newcomer, An Immigrant's Guide to Adapting and Thriving in the New Culture. And also for the upcoming TEDx event that she's organizing at Metro Hall in Toronto on August the 7th. And where can they find tickets online?
Yes, I can visit the website
At TEDxTrinityBellwoods.com. So TEDx TrinityBellwoods.com, and also on Facebook and social media. It's all posted along there. And we'll also put it up on this episode, so on SoundCloud and iTunes and all of that fun stuff. So definitely check that out. I'll be there in person as well. So we hope to see you there. And Olesya, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Of course. Thanks for all the listeners.
Thank
Speak
you.
soon. Bye. That was great.